Hey fam, how you all doing? I hope you guys are doing great because I just saw The Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman-ing.
I'm Batman. I'm awesome.
Or Vengeance.
I'm Vengeance.
Since they don't really call him Batman yet, but before I go ramble on with this video, I just want to clarify that in the world where comic book movies are built for continuity, especially the Marvel movies and with the current state of DC cinematic universe, I am happy to inform that this universe will be its own thing, and hopefully for the entire Batman run with Matt Reeves. Now, I'm going to say it off the bat so that I can make my point clear that The Batman was amazing. The movie was 3 hours, but it didn't feel like 3 hours for me. The way the movie immerses you in the world of Gotham, you wouldn't really feel like it was 3 hours. Well, I don't know. That's at least on my part, or the way that I felt when I saw the movie. And Matt Reeves succeeds with flying colors, and he kept his promise through and through that his interpretation of the Caped Crusader was going to be a detective movie that felt like a film noir. Because in the Nolan trilogy, we got a Batman that is the hero that Gotham deserves. And the idea of helping innocent people by fighting criminality within the government system and out on the streets of Gotham, and he shows motivation and inspiration to people to fight criminality, that their city doesn't belong to the criminals and corrupt. In the Batfleck movies, we see a Batman that's been Batman for decades now, as we see how the criminals of Gotham got more violent and aggressive, and he's already sensed the loss of a son in Dick Grayson. In other words, he's basically the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns comics Batman. But in Matt Reeves' The Batman, we get more detective story driven Batman that leads back to his old days in the detective comics, where he's known to be the world's greatest detective, and at the same time we get a very young Batman who's still in his youth and is still trying to figure out how to be the symbol that Gotham needs him to be. Instead of him doing what he thinks is helping saving his parents' legacy, he tries to understand how the people of Gotham as a whole, they need saving. Instead of striking fear into Gotham, as we hear him throughout his voiceover that he's been Batman for 2 years and the crime rate of Gotham it just keeps rising, and he questions himself, what am I doing wrong? And in the end act, you see one of the Riddler's goons, after getting his ass whooped by Batman, telling him, I'm Vengeance. And Bruce realizes that he's being a symbol, but not the right one. The reason his ideal impact hasn't been doing the change that he wants for Gotham is because his idea of striking fear into Gotham as a whole isn't going to help Gotham improve as a city. Actually, in my opinion, it just makes Gotham even terrifying of a place to live in, and it's not going to solve the problem that Gotham has. I mean, think about it. You have a Caped Crusader running around beating criminals and striking fear into Gotham, but not letting the city of Gotham as a whole understand why he's doing this and why he wants Gotham to be a better place. Speaking of Gotham, holy cow. Gotham in this movie looks astonishing. It feels gritty and dark, and it lets you immerse into its environment, especially the way the cinematography of the film was shot. It had the detective noir feel into it, and adding the tone of the movie into the mix just makes Gotham a place no one would ever live in, and that's how Gotham should really feel like. As much as I admire the Nolan trilogy and the Tim Burton Batman movies, on an aesthetic and cinematography level, to me, this is the best looking Gotham to be put into live action. Gotham in this movie reminded me a lot of the animated series, the atmosphere of it all. Like, you question yourself on why Batman has to save a city that is broken socially and politically. In terms of Gotham's politics, Gotham's leadership officials is literally run by corrupt officials. And it's even run to an extent by the crime families, both the Falcone and the Baroni families. And they're kind of part of the Long Halloween comics if you read them. Gotham in this movie just makes Batman question himself that, does this city have a chance at being saved? I mean, we hear Selena Kyle even said that Gotham is beyond saving. Kind of like what Anne Hathaway's Catwoman told Batman, that he can't save Gotham and that he's given the people of Gotham everything. So, to be honest, Gotham in this movie is a solid 10 out of 10 for me. Now, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the movie. Now, Robert Pattinson's portrayal of Batman, I think the whole point the movie is going for is to show a young, flawed, not fully formed Batman. It's year 2, so he's still figuring it out. The blurred line between Bruce and the Bat is purposeful. The Bruce in this movie doesn't know what the Batman stands for yet. He's literally just out for vengeance, which is why at the end there's that big moment when the Riddler's followers say that exact line, vengeance. Bruce spends the whole movie seeing where blind rage and anger will lead him. And in that moment, that's where he makes the decision to start changing. For me, I do understand the criticism of Bruce and Batman feeling the same characters in this movie, but my counter argument for that is it's just his second year of being Batman, to the point that he's kind of obsessed with it. Kind of like Darwin Cook's Batman Ego comic, where the comic gives us an in-depth look into the psyche of Bruce Wayne, and most importantly, what the Batman persona represents. And I want to talk about the Batman persona in this film, which to me, it's clearly vengeance and fear. From the beginning of the movie, you hear a voiceover by Bruce about how his signal and being a warning to criminals. I mean, there's this quote where he said that they think I'm hiding in the shadows, but I am the shadows. And in the first scene, you see Batman just walking out the shadows like Darth Vader in Rogue One and just annihilated that one thug that was taunting him, and he doesn't hold his punches. Like, seriously, this Batman is brutal as hell, which some people might have a problem with that. And I've been seeing criticisms that this Batman is really edgy, dark, and a Batman we've never seen before, but you have to remember, Matt Reeves did tell us that he was going to have his Batman at his second year of crime fighting. That's why you don't see the difference between the persona of both Bruce Wayne and Batman. Bruce in this movie still hasn't moved on from the death of his parents, and holy cow, his parents do play a role in this movie that I will touch on later. But the fact that Bruce hasn't moved on from his parents' deaths makes me understand more why he's being the symbol of vengeance. There's within the lines where Alfred said that if Bruce keeps doing this vengeance thing where to the point he doesn't care what happens to him, it terrifies Alfred because he made a promise to protect both Thomas and Martha Wayne, and they both died. And you can see the sadness and frustration of Alfred, especially in the hospital scene where Alfred tells Bruce that he shouldn't blame himself for his parents' death because he was just a little boy. And speaking about Thomas and Martha Wayne, this movie did change some of the characters' lore in the comics, like Bruce's mom, Martha Wayne. Her last name, or should I say maiden name, is Arkham, and she's part of the Arkham family, which initiates that she created the Arkham Asylum and was told that she had mental issues at one point. And that's one of the backstories where Bruce finds out about his family, which is kind of like Earth 1 Batman with Jeff Johns' run, where Martha has a lineage to Arkham. And that's also the same thing I felt with Andy Serkis's Alfred, which he did a phenomenal job, I should say. But going back, his Alfred is kind of like Earth 1 Alfred, where he's like this special trained badass, and at one point he says that he taught Bruce how to fight. And that's why, for me, the way to describe this movie is that it felt like a combination and a lot of references to Earth 1, Arkham series, the animated series, and Nolan's film. Not that these attributes were problems, it actually made me appreciate this movie more. And I also appreciate how this movie portrays the Wayne family, especially Thomas Wayne. I mean, you have been working with the mob, and since Thomas Wayne funded a billion-dollar charity called Renewal, and all these officials were being corrupt and stealing from it, and you have Falcone, played by the John Turturro himself, who was fantastic as well, basically running the town of Gotham as he holds power. Because in all Batman movies, we all see the Wayne family as these God-sent and great people, and that their deaths is why Batman becomes Batman. But with this movie, they kinda made a mistake, and they tried to cover it up with the help of the mob. They're not necessarily terrible people, but they were not perfect people. And I appreciate that take because it just gives more conflict within Bruce because he's doing heroic things for the sake of his parents because he thinks that they're his heroes, his idols, but when he truly finds out about the truth, it makes him question himself and brutally hurts him. It's kinda like in the Telltale games, and seeing those conflicts within his family's legacy makes it a more interesting way and how he can better himself because of what his parents have done in the past. I mean, I can name a lot of the comics that this movie really used. Like, for example, you have Year One with its dark, gritty perception of Gotham being overrun by a lot of corrupt officials, organized crimes, and the crime families, and is very reminiscent of Miller's and Michelle's depiction of Bruce's first year of Batman. And he goes up against corrupt society that took the lives of his parents. The Long Halloween with the tone and idea of a detective noir story-driven comic, and especially its main focus over Gotham's powerful crime families, the Maroni and the Falcones. And you also get the Bruce and Selina relationship, and Selina being Falcone's biological daughter, and the crime thriller plot where you have a killer aiming to kill corrupt officials. Dark Victory, where it has the same vibes as the Long Halloween, but you get the exploration of Bruce Wayne's humanity. I'd even throw in Darwin's Cook Ego that I just named a while ago, since Ego also dives into Batman's mental health and how being Batman for so long messed up Bruce's head. Batman Earth 1. As I explained a while ago, the dynamic between Bruce and Alfred is a lot similar to Earth 1 Batman. As you see, he's far more like a war veteran and a special force kind of butler. And you also get the focus of Bruce fixing the corruption in Gotham and fighting for his parents' legacy. And in volume 2 of it, you also get the Riddler that does the same thing the movie does. He targets all the corrupt officials of Gotham and he orchestrates a bombing in Gotham. Zero Year, where it aimed to tell a more modern take on the Cape Crusaders backstory for the New 52 comics. Same as Year 1, retelling the first years of Bruce being Batman and how he became the Dark Knight. And same as Earth 1, you have the Riddler as Batman's first adversary, where you had him just like in the movie, flood the entire city, making Gotham like a city that's been destroyed by a storm. And one other aspect at Zero Year that for me felt like was hammered down by Matt in the movie, and that's when throughout the comics, Bruce realizes that Batman needs to be more of an idea. Instead of being a symbol of vengeance and fear, he has to be the beacon of hope and Gotham's beating heart for the city, and help Gotham and its citizens have a brighter future for them. Kinda like in the end act when Batman helps out a lady and he realizes that he can't be a symbol of vengeance and fear, but he has to give the people of Gotham hope. Now, the $1,000,000 question about this movie, and I've been seeing this debate for a while since the Batman came out, is it better than The Dark Knight? Well, to be honest, it's unfair comparing the two movies because both of them, in my opinion, explore the whole idea of what Batman actually is, but in a very different way. Because the Batman is more of a personal story about a man coming into grips with what exactly does he want. Like, what does he want to do? What does he want to accomplish? What does it mean to be Batman? Because in the Batman, we see that Bruce is doing everything Batman for the sake of the legacy of his dead parents. He wants to, well, avenge them. So the Batman kind of feels like a personal story to me. Whereas in The Dark Knight, I don't think The Dark Knight delves into the Batman or what it means to be Batman, because we already know The Dark Knight is already established what Batman is supposed to be. I think The Dark Knight is asking, what do we as people like? What kind of a world do we, the audience, want to live in? When right now in real life and in bigger stages, even right now, that there are people who just want to watch the world burn. And if there are people like the Joker exist in this world, what are we going to do? What is Batman going to do? So honestly, it's unfair to compare the two because The Dark Knight is just on a much more bigger scale, whereas in the Batman is much more on a personal level type of scale. So honestly, what do I prefer, The Dark Knight or the Batman? Well, for me, the Batman feels more like a Batman story, where in The Dark Knight, it kind of feels more than just a Batman movie. It feels like it's more of a society movie. Like, it makes us question about humanity, that are we good or bad? And what are we gonna do if we have people like the Joker running around? So honestly, it's hard to compare which one is better, the Batman or the Dark Knight. Because in the Batman, you get a really young and flawed Batman. He doesn't know what he wants to be, he doesn't know what he needs to be, and he doesn't know what type of symbol he has to be for Gotham to understand that he's just trying to help them. And you do get that moment with Batman where he realizes that I can't be this symbol of fear and vengeance. It's just sending a negative impact to Gotham as a whole. He has to send a different type of idea, a different type of symbol that the good people of Gotham can stand by him. But that's going to take Bruce a while to figure things out. So you have that. Whereas in The Dark Knight, you get a Batman that understands what it means to be Batman. He understands that he has to be a hero. He understands that he needs to be the symbol that Gotham can look up to for a brighter future ahead of them. He becomes the Batman because he wants to show the people of Gotham a symbol that they can look up to. He wants people to know that anyone can be Batman, that Gotham doesn't belong to the criminals and corrupt. And he inspires people to fight criminality. And in the end, he sacrifices everything. He sacrifices his image as a hero, as a protector. But he understands that he's doing this for the greater good of Gotham. So honestly, this is a hard debate to answer because I love these two movies. So I'm just gonna leave this debate to you guys. What do you guys prefer? The Dark Knight or the Batman? So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys can like this video and subscribe, and yeah, hope to make more great content with you guys. So have a great day or a great night, and remember, you're not alone. I'm here.